Have you ever argued over a rule that just seemed totally unfair? Well, we're going to dive into one of those moments, a simple dispute in a parking lot, to really understand how judges think and why the exact words of a law can sometimes matter more than anything else.
All right, so let's get right into it. Here's the conflict at the heart of our story. A city law gives a parking discount to a few specific groups. Now, a pregnant woman argues she should get it too, but she's not on the list. This simple disagreement brings up a huge question. Should we follow the law's exact words or what we think its purpose is?
So here's how we're going to break this all down. We'll start with the problem itself, explore the two competing arguments, see why one of them usually wins out in court, look at the rare exceptions to the rule, and finally, we'll deliver the verdict on our parking lot case.
Okay, let's start with the hard facts, because before we can even start to debate what a law should mean, we have to know exactly what it says. And trust me, in legal analysis, every single word counts.
The ordinance itself, it is crystal clear. It lists just two groups who get a pass on parking fees: senior citizens and persons with disabilities. That's it, full stop. Now, I want you to pay really close attention to how specific that list is, because that little detail, it's the most important clue in this entire puzzle.
Now, let's step into the pregnant woman's shoes for a minute. You see, her argument isn't really about the legal text itself. It's about something more intuitive, what you might call the law's true purpose, or its spirit.
Her case is all about fairness. She's basically saying, look, the whole point of this law is to help people who have a tough time getting around. Pregnancy creates real mobility issues, so I should be covered under the law's spirit, even if the specific words, the letter, don't mention me. And you know what? It's a really compelling, common-sense argument.
All right, let's flip this around now and see how a judge would approach this. Because courts have a very specific set of tools for reading laws, and they tend to be, well, very, very precise.
Okay, this is the big one. And yeah, it's in Latin, but don't worry, the idea is super simple. It's a core rule that judges use all the time. It just means that when lawmakers write a specific list of things, they are also, on purpose, creating a list of what's not included. That list isn't just a suggestion, it's a firm boundary.
So here's the crucial point. By naming only senior citizens and PWDs, the law is actively saying that no other group gets the exemption. The list itself is the message. It's like a guest list for a party. If your name isn't on it, you're not getting in.
And just in case that wasn't clear enough, there's another rule that kind of doubles down on this idea. This one says that we have to assume that anything left off a list was left off on purpose. So in the eyes of the law, pregnant women aren't on this list by mistake. They were intentionally left out.
So this, right here. This is the fundamental tug of war we're talking about. The spirit of the law is all about fairness and being flexible. But the letter of the law, that's all about predictability and sticking to the exact text. Our entire legal system is constantly trying to balance these two ideas.
So you might be asking yourself, why does this super strict, seemingly rigid way of reading the law usually come out on top in a courtroom? Well, there are some very powerful, very practical reasons.
There are three big ones. First up, legal certainty. Just imagine if laws were just vague suggestions that judges could change based on how they felt that day. Nobody would know what the rules actually are. A clear list creates a predictable rule for everybody. Second, respecting the lawmakers. A court's job is to be a referee, to apply the rules as they're written, not to jump in and start writing new ones. That's for the city council to do. And finally, practicality. I mean, think about enforcing this. It's super easy for a parking attendant to verify a senior or PWD with an ID card, but how would they verify a pregnancy on the spot? Clear rules are just easier for everyone to apply.
And this is where the details get really interesting. These categories, they aren't just vague ideas. They have precise legal definitions. In the Philippines, for example, a person with disability is defined by law as having a long-term impairment. Pregnancy, while it's absolutely physically demanding, is by its very nature temporary, so legally speaking, it just doesn't fit into the box that the lawmakers created. These definitions aren't accidental. They're designed for absolute clarity.
And look, you don't have to take my word for it. The Supreme Court itself has given a very clear command to judges on this. If the words of a law are clear, you must give them their literal meaning. Period. When the letter of the law is that obvious, there's just no room for a judge to start guessing about the spirit.
Okay, but what happens when following the rules to the letter leads to a totally bizarre or absurd result? I mean, does the law have a built-in safety valve for common sense?
Yeah, let's dig into that. Because even though these rules about strict interpretation are incredibly powerful, They are not absolute. There are moments when courts recognize that a literal reading just doesn't make any sense at all.
So a court can bend the rules, but only, and this is a big only, in extreme cases. Like if a literal reading leads to a completely ridiculous result, or if it violates a huge constitutional right, or if it totally torpedoes the law's entire purpose. Think of this as the law's emergency brake. It's very rarely used, but it's a critical safeguard against pure nonsense. For instance, in a real case, a law was written with the clear goal of increasing competition for a government project, but a word-for-word reading of it accidentally made it illegal for private companies to even bid. The court stepped in and basically said, "Whoa, this is absurd. The literal text achieves the exact opposite of what this law was designed to do." So they bent the rule to let the law work the way it was obviously intended.
All right, let's bring this all home. It's time to apply everything we've learned back to our pregnant woman in the parking lot.
So when you apply all these legal principles, the verdict is actually pretty clear. While excluding a pregnant woman might seem unfair to some of us, in a legal sense, it's not absurd. It's a reasonable policy choice that the lawmakers made. Because of that, the emergency brake can't be pulled. A court has to apply the law as written. She's not on the list, so she's not in the club.
So what can she do now? Well, asking a court to just add her to the list is a dead end. That's called judicial legislation, a judge writing laws, and it's a line they just can't cross. The correct path for her is political. Her fight isn't in the courtroom, it's at City Hall. She needs to lobby the very same lawmakers who wrote the ordinance and convince them to amend it.
And really, this entire scenario, it all comes down to one of the most fundamental ideas in a democracy, the separation of powers. Legislatures write the laws, courts apply them. If judges start rewriting laws whenever they feel they're unfair, our whole system starts to break down. They'd be taking on a power that just doesn't belong to them.
And that leaves us with a really tough final question, one I want you to think about. Our legal system often chooses a predictable law over a perfectly fair one in every single situation. It's a trade-off, made to make sure the rules are stable and clear for everyone. But is it always the right choice? What do you think?